Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're going back and finishing Shang-Chi versus the Marvel Universe, and wrapping this one up with both part 5 and 6, with Shang-Chi versus Iron Man and Shang-Chi versus Thor. So with that said, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top, so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so far throughout this series, there's been this building tension, with Shang inheriting the 5-weapon society from his father, but instead of him being the ruler that his father wanted him to be, Shang has been using the resources of the 5-weapon society to fix much of the damage that the society has caused before, while also bringing his family back together. But with him wanting to do this without getting the heroes involved, in order to avoid suspicion, but with doing this it's only raised more suspicion, because like we've seen with Shang's efforts to clean up the 5-weapon society and use them as a force for good, the heroes will only catch him during mid-cleanup or doing some suspicious action, as well as trying to avoid their assistance, because he didn't want to explain himself over and over again. And this is something that only got worse when Shang tried to include the heroes, because previously when Shang took the 5-weapon society to an auction so that he could get the cosmic cube and take it to the Avengers, but this planet went left when Shang's brother Takeshi used the cosmic cube in order to create a fake cosmic cube to hand to Captain America, which from there put the Avengers on alert. And when Shang asked for Reed Richards' help to get his mother out of the negative zone, which at first Shang thought was his sister but turned out to be his mother, but with Shang asking Reed Richards for assistance, Reed Richards declined because he didn't want to help the leader of the 5-weapon society. So Shang, his brother, and his 2 sisters broke into the Baxter building, which obviously didn't help his PR. But even though this mix-up allowed Shang to bring his mother back from the negative zone, this still stacked up on the piling case of Shang-Chi's suspicious activity. And so at this point, heading into the conclusion, we pick up at the House of the Deadly Hand in New York, where at this time Shang is being paid a visit by Red Dot and the Red Dot Collective, who recently have gotten their hands on one of Tony Stark's suits. And so if you're not familiar with Red Dot or the Red Dot Collective, don't feel bad, they're brand new. But with how this is done, we're given the idea that these guys have been around for a while. Because when they come to Shang offering him the opportunity to make this purchase before anyone else, and Shang declines, telling them that, well, no, I'm not gonna buy it, but you can stick around for the proper authorities, and so that he can give the suit to its rightful owner. But of course Red Dot takes this as an offense, with him telling Shang that he only came here first out of respect for Shang's late father and the 5-weapon society. But when this happens, it's here with the Red Dot Collective. They then whip out their cybernetic enhancements, which right away shows us how they got the name. But with Shang readily just handling these guys, he then gets caught by Red Dot, who takes off his shades, and like a classic Bond villain, he has a gun for an eye. And it's here where he catches Shang, he aims for the head, and he lets off a shot, while telling Shang as the master of Kung Fu that he's not quick enough. But then it's here we find that Shang had caught that bullet with his teeth, in a very epic yet classic Bruce Leroy fashion. But what's even crazier here is that Shang spits the bullet back out in the dude's eye, taking out his cybernetics. But from here, his brothers and sisters take Red Dot and the Red Dot Collective into the interrogation room to find out where the Red Dot Collective got the suit, while Shang takes a moment to check on his mother just after the recent attack. But then it's here where Iron Man comes crashing in, with him knowing that one of his suits is at this location, which again is not only Shang's New York headquarters, but it's the House of the Deadly Hand. So again, there's that assumption of the heroes believing that Shang is up to no good. But with Iron Man crashing in here, he nearly hits Shang's mother. And it's like, geez, Tony, with all that tech, you can't detect bystanders? But then it's from here with Shang knowing that he can't just take on Iron Man with his bare hands. So he ends up having Tony chase him to the armory, to where from there, Shang just gets his hands on a number of weapons that have been coated with adamantium in order to fight Tony off. But eventually all of this just leads to a standoff when Shang hooks onto one of Tony's gloves, which is a bit of a risky move that I imagine could have went left for Shang, but for the sake of this situation, it bought him enough time to talk to Tony and more or less tell him that he knows how this looks. And even though he can't prove to Tony that he didn't steal his suit, all he can really tell Tony right now is just to take his word on it. To where from there, he takes Tony to the interrogation room and shows him Red Dot along with the Red Dot Collective, to where from there Tony apologizes and he takes back his tech. But then it's here that we find out, after Tony leaves, that he had set this whole thing up, because as it turns out, he had given the Red Dot Collective his tech and he told them to try to sell it to Shang, just to see if Shang was going to do the right thing. But even with it turning out that Shang had did the right thing, Tony from here goes back to the other heroes and he tells them that Shang had just lied to his face, because even though this whole thing was a setup by Tony to see how Shang would react, in the bigger picture this was really the heroes trying to see if Shang would confess to not handing over the cosmic cube. But again, like we know, Shang doesn't know he still has it, and he's none the wiser to his brother Takeshi hitting Captain America for the okie doke. And it's from here where Tony tells the others that he's tracked the cosmic cube to Japan at the house of the deadly Saber, which as we know is Takeshi's home. But at this point the heroes, they're tired of waiting for an explanation, so now they're making preparations to make their way to Japan to secure the cosmic cube. But also at this point, Shang, Jilan, Esme, and Takeshi, they've already made their way out to the house of the deadly Saber because they've been informed by the Five Weapons Society that this house will soon be under attack. But while they're here, Takeshi shows them his latest addition to his collection of swords, which is the blade of Takamikazuchi, the god of blades and thunder, which is also known as a 10-fist sword. Because again, the last time we talked about them coming here to the house of the deadly Saber, this sword wasn't here, and we'll talk more about how it got here in just a little bit. But with Takeshi showing this sword to the others, he tells them that it was a replica forged by their father in the hopes of harnessing the power of a god. But once again, keep that in mind, we'll get back to that. Because it's at this point here where the heroes arrive, and with doing so, their entrance is not very friendly, because they know the cosmic cube is here. So from their perspective, they're convinced that Shang's affiliation with the Five Weapons Society has done more change to Shang than he has to the society, and for that reason they're coming in just hostile from the jump. But right away with Cap telling Shang to hand over the cube, initially Shang is confused because he thought that they had already handed the cube over. So Shang tells Cap like, hey man, if you lost it, that's on you. But when Reed tells him that they tracked the cube here, and Tony goes on to say that they're ready to tear this place apart brick by brick to find it, and it's from there where Shang looks to Takeshi, to where then he's just like, these guys are lying, and right away this just turns into an all-out brawl. And at this point it's not only because Shang has just been going off of Takeshi's word, but also now it's escalated to the point of Shang defending the house of the deadly Saber. But with Takeshi being the champion of this house, he then calls for the warriors of the deadly Saber to defend Shang, their supreme commander, and when this happens, Tony, he's like, nah, we ain't about to do this. Because when this army shows up, it's here where Tony, he just calls for Thor. And when this happens, Thor, he's pretty much the search crew, more or less. Because when he gets there, he gives Shang a word of advice, telling Shang like, hey, if an Avenger offers you a path that is non-violent, you should take it. You should accept that offer. And from there, he just goes into the destroy and search protocol, which from here then leads to Takeshi just taking off. But with leaving, he tells Esme that he's getting something that will even the odds. And in the meantime, Jilan, she tries to slow down Thor's hammer by using her mutant power to solidify sound, but this attempt was definitely not enough to stop Mjolnir. And with seeing this, Esme, she then starts to go after Thor. But before she can, Takeshi comes back with a 10-fist sword, tossing it to Shang while telling Shang that he lied about this sword not being able to channel the power of Takamikazuchi. And with Shang catching the sword and feeling the power just surge through him, he tells Thor, for the sake of everyone else here, that they keep this fight between the two of them, and if Thor wins, they can search all they want. But if Shang wins, then Thor and the others have to leave them in peace. But for Thor, with hearing this, he doesn't even take the offer seriously. And Thor more or less tells Shang like, this has gotta be a joke, right? Because how can a mere mortal face the god of thunder? But with Thor saying this, Shang lets him know that he's not the only god of thunder. And when he says this, immediately they clash weapons and Thor accepts the challenge. And very quickly, within like the first few strikes, Thor notices that this sword is parrying every attack from Mjolnir. And he don't like it. So with seeing this, Thor then starts to charge up for his next strike, more or less telling Shang that he's out of his league at this point. But then Shang tells Thor that perhaps the same is true for him, as he slashes past Thor at the speed of lightning, cutting Thor on the cheek. And with doing this, Shang, he asks Thor like, shall we continue? Like, has this settled the duel? And of course for Thor, in response to shall we continue, he's like, aye, because he's not gonna let it just end like that. But then it's here where Thor uses Mjolnir and he knocks the blade out of Shang's hand, which by all means appears to be the end of this duel. But when this happens, Shang then calls back the 10-fist sword, and when it returns to him, he then notices that there's something strangely familiar about his power. And it's here while holding the sword, he tells it to make Thor's hammer melt, to where then Mjolnir just melts like an ice cream cone on a summer day. But with Shang testing this out, he realizes right away that the 10-fist sword is actually the cosmic cube, which we had seen Shang use before in issue 2. But with Shang seeing this now, he's realizing that Takeshi had been lying the whole time. But with Shang seeing this, he looks at Takeshi like, man, so you did steal the cosmic cube. And Takeshi's just like, no, I didn't steal it, I kept it. There's a difference. But as far as Takeshi's concerned, the Cosmic Cube, it belongs to the Five Weapons Society because they set up the whole meet at the auction, their connections and their efforts got the cube, so to him it doesn't make sense that they just hand it over to the Avengers. But also like we'd seen, there's also a factor of Takeshi wanting to impress Lady Iron Fan, with her being his ex and everything, but Shang lets him know that this is bigger than all of that. But with them saying this, Takeshi then gives Shang an ultimatum, because he agrees that this is about so much more, but to Takeshi, this is more so about Shang betraying his family, and he gives Shang the ultimatum to either choose his family or choose the Avengers. But with Takeshi doing this, Shang lets him know that he's not choosing either, but instead he's choosing the truth. Because the truth is, Takeshi stole the Cosmic Cube, no matter how you want to put it. And then on top of stealing the cube, he hid the cube, to where then he just lied to Shang about the whole thing. And with Shang choosing the truth, he demands the warriors of the Deadly Saber to hand over their champion to Captain America. And when they hesitate, he lets them know that that's an order from their supreme commander. But with Shang handing over his brother, Spider-Man then reassures Shang that he did the right thing, and he tells Shang that he always knew that him and the other heroes could trust him, which is true for the most part, though like we've seen, Spider-Man had his doubts from time to time, but for the most part throughout the course of this, he's always been the voice of optimism. But at this point, with the other heroes leaving with Takeshi in their custody, it's here where Reed asks Tony, how do they know that Shang didn't just do this for the sake of covering his own tracks? And in response, Tony just tells him that they don't know. Which from here concludes Shang-Chi versus the Marvel Universe, at least for now, because we know that some of the heroes have their lingering suspicions, but also we know that Takeshi, he still hasn't forgotten the vision that he had seen of Shang's future, with Shang one day turning into an OP version of his father. And so real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support, and for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below, so you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.